Well, good evening to our viewers and happy Mandela Day. This is Economics Unbound, so welcome to it. Well, July marks National Savings Month and today marks Nelson Mandela Day. So we're talking children and saving and a bit of Madiba. The initiative was started in 2001 by a non-profit organization, the South African Savings Institute, SABC. The aim is to raise awareness of the benefits of short, medium and long-term planning and saving, as well as keeping citizens informed of investments and savings and the benefits thereof. Hello, Nana.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, we are speaking savings. Whatever saving goals you're trying to reach, be it car deposit, holiday or retirement, we have all the tips for you tonight.
Now, yes, Nana, it's time to stop making all those excuses that we often make and start saving. Me as well. You see, Nana, saving is about training your brain. Now, behavioral economists and finance specialists say saving should not be viewed as a hardship or a grudge, but as a reward to yourself for all your hard work. They say saving should be a line item in your budget.
But Tans, you don't need to have money in order to be able to save. I mean, if you're drowning in debt, how can you save?
Dear Nana, well, it would help to have some money. Well, Nana, in the words of Madiba, it always seems impossible until it's done. Research indicates that most South Africans have a poor savings culture, and the reasons for this range from economic issues, lack of information, bad financial decisions, lack of discipline, and not enough earnings. However, experts say that failing to save is going to get you into trouble. You see, Nana, if you don't save, you will crash and burn. And if your lines of credit are not open, you'll find yourself in an untenable situation. Well, Nana, saving and investment accounts are a great way to encourage smarter wealth management. And to discuss this, we are now joined by a lady from Old Mutual. Her name is Lynette Nicholson, and she's the manager for research at Old Mutual, as I said. Welcome, Lynette.
Evening.
You're most welcome at the SABC.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about kids and saving and training the brain. Presumably, the earlier you train the brain to delay gratification, the better.
And that's a very difficult one, Tandeka, in today's environment, and how kids are growing up with instant, everything at their fingertips, technologically and so forth. But it is a culture that we need to instill right from the early age at school. At school, we should be learning how to manage a budget, how to manage money.
So this should be in our curriculum. But what about at home? Even before children go to school, we understand that the earlier you start introducing your children to numbers and to words, so literacy and numeracy are linked, and the earlier you can introduce concepts like teaching children, even through cookies, counting cookies, about compound interest.
And we sometimes say that compound interest is the seventh wonder of the world because people, it is such a wonderful thing that people very often don't understand. But absolutely, at home as well. And, we even still have today people putting coins in money banks and boxes and bottles and whatever, and that's fine, that's a start. But we then need to obviously move on to where you need to put that, why you need to put it in a safe place, how it's going to grow, etc., etc.
What do you think of piggy banks at the age of 3?
I don't have a problem with that. I think that at that age a child's not going to get, and it's going to be probably quite upset if you took the money away and put it in the bank. So even if saving coins in a piggy bank is the start, until they can conceptualize what that means by putting it somewhere else where it can grow. Perfect.
What teaching or pedagogic tools can we use to teach really small children to put it there and to wait and to delay the rewards? The delaying of gratification is, according to research, very linked to success of all kinds, including success at saving and investing. Tell us what tools would you advise parents out there to teach their kids?
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. You know, we do something in our household where we say if you save this amount by the end of the year, then we will add this amount to that, just to start getting that concept of interest, of if you leave it in for longer, then there's a reward at the end of that. But if you spend it now or on the weekend, just because you've got it there, it's gone.
I remember this advert on South African TV where mummy puts a cookie with, I think, some milk and leaves the room saying, if you wait and you wait for me to come back with more, then you will have more to use or to eat at the end. And the kids who wait, you should just see their beaming smiles afterwards.
And it's tough. It's tough for them. It's really tough.
Right, but savings and collective savings in South Africa are very popular with stokvel movements and so on. What's the importance of collective saving?
So absolutely, our study over the last 11 years has shown that stokvel savings or group savings, collective savings has increased dramatically. Not only more people doing it, but the amount of money going into that. So this year we had a shoot up on the amount of money that people are putting into stokvels, and there are reasons for that. I don't know if you want me to go into them, but that collective is a convenient, easy way of saving. However, it's normally for short-term consumption. And when I say short-term consumption, it might not be next month, but it's not a long-term investment that may grow. Having said that, though, the stokvel market or the stokvel activity does have part of it where that lends out, that then gains interest from the lender and brings more money back. So that is sometimes another benefit of it.
Now, I understand that stokvels pool large amounts of money together. My colleague Diabo Setu is a bit of an expert in this area, says something like 11 billion in our country. And these then are used not only to dish out money at the end of the period, but also to reinvest, like to reinvest in each other's businesses, to reinvest and buy shares together, and to do many creative economic things. What are the economic benefits of having a savings culture for a country?
Sure. I mean, that I think is anything that has if we could get a savings culture, wouldn't that be wonderful in terms of wealth generation, in terms of a lot of things. But just going back to your comment about pulling together and maybe an investment club, which is kind of where you were going, what we also found was this really up and coming trend of property stokvels. And large amounts of money going into...
So how do these work?
Yes.
We help you buy a house, and then next we help Mary buy a house,
that's
and then
one.
Tandega buy a house.
Yes, so that's the one type which we called home ownership property stokvels. But there's another more complex and more investment long-term, and that's the wealth generation property stokvels that we called them that. Can have up to 500 members in one stokvel, all contributing thousands of rand a month, which turns into millions of rand a year. Why? Because if I've got this amount of money, either over a year or 2 or 3, I can buy a piece of land. And guess what? You know what? I'm not taking a loan from a bank, so I don't pay interest.
We borrow from each other.
Well, we pay. We are contracted with a constitution and a contract, and we're all in this together. And we're going to buy a piece of land, which we either then develop, hostels. A big one is student accommodation, or housing to rent out. But there will eventually be a return, and we don't have that extra many years that we are going to be paying back interest on that.
And the administration of these stokvels must be very interesting. The other day we saw an app for these stokvels to manage monies. Can you tell us, what are the three most fundamental things that somebody who wants to start saving in South Africa and wants to train the family to save can do?
Right. So there are three simple, say, rules, tips. The first is understand your finances. And I know that sounds so simple, but how many of us don't actually? We just get our salary in, and it goes out, and then, we left with nothing at the end of the month, or I didn't realize it was going to be this expensive this month. So first of all, understand your finances. And when I say that, also understand what you're putting into a pension fund if you are. How does that work? Try and get educated about what's happening with your finances. The other one is plan ahead. Have a goal. I think you were saying earlier, have something to save towards, even if it is by the end of September or October. I'd like to have saved 500 Rand. If that's your short-term goal, great. That will get you into the whole, activity of saving. And then thirdly is you don't have to do it on your own. So there are professionals and experts that can help you and advise you. And often people tell us that I don't want to talk to somebody because they're going to see how bad I am at managing my finances. But we're all in the same situation. And those people are there to help you. So seek expert advice.
So the bank manager can be your friend and the broker can be your asset.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, what is the most important thing we can teach our children about investment? About investment,
investment's an interesting one because you have to get past a certain age to teach about investment. But absolutely, that saving, if you don't save today, you're not going to have anything tomorrow. And I know that's a difficult concept for a child to grasp, but this impulsive spending, this instant gratification, what happens when it's all gone? Then it's all gone. We need to save today for tomorrow, to have a better tomorrow.
In order not to obscure tomorrow and make it this vague, opaque thing, is it worth it to give children little goals? If you save now, we can buy that bicycle and you can buy it yourself. If you save today, you can buy that doll. Is it important to set goals and make children work towards goals and thus establish another life habit of being goal-oriented?
I love that. I think that's brilliant. Absolutely. As I was saying earlier, also in our family, I was saying, so if you save that amount, then we're going to add that. That's like a goal, isn't it? But absolutely, there's the bike in the shop. If you save this amount, you can buy the bike. But if you save this amount plus that amount, you can put a bell on the bike, all right? And we can have, dangly things on the handlebars.
Bells and
whistles, yes. So absolutely, goals is a brilliant. And you know what? It's also great to have a record. So we used to have those post office books, in the olden days, where you used to have tally up your record.
There's some kind of psychological benefit
so
to
if it's
ticking
pocket
off.
money, make a proportion of your pocket money to go to savings. The rest you can spend so that there is some reward, but there's a portion that goes to savings.
Well,
and you let them add it up and see how it grows.
This is awfully exciting. Thank you, Lynette. I'm sure many families found your contributions very beneficial out there.
Thank
and
you.
Nana, what do you think?
We will be back with you after this short break. Stay with us.
SABC News continues to gauge our democracy throughout 2019 by highlighting the successes, failures, and challenges. Democracy Gauge is back on SA Today every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6 p.m. It's 25 years in review of all aspects of the South African democratic experience, and you remain in the heart of the story. SABC News, independent, impartial.
What should you do to avoid getting ill?
Eat healthy, not to do drugs, not to smoke.
To learn more about some of the most common illnesses and how to avoid them, join Dr. Silomo Daung each week and get all your health questions answered by experts.
What are those signs that people should look out for and say, this is time for me to go and seek help?
It is very important to identify and address those problems as early as possible.
You are a fighter, you are a warrior, and you will get better.
Right here on Health Talk.
As the world prepares to mark Nelson Mandela International Day this July, we speak to Africans on the continent and in the diaspora who are doing good. Individuals who reflect the values and legacy of South Africa's first democratically elected president.
It is a story about humanity's great capacity for goodness, for peace, and for hope.
Nelson Mandela was one of humanity's great leaders. He embodied the highest values of the United Nations.
Every day when you watched him lead from the front, from the back, from the side, was a masterclass.
Watch African Perspective on SABC News Channel 404 every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Now, welcome back. I am joined in studio now by Khomotso Modimoeng, who is manager in the Financial Inclusion Division at the Banking Association of South Africa. Hello, Khomotso, how are you?
I'm awesome, thank you.
Welcome to the SABC.
Thank you.
It's Mandela Day. What do you think Mandela would have said about children and saving today?
Most definitely, how do we make them or enable them and democratize their finance so that they don't end up being like the previous generation and end up being over indebted. So help them and teach them how to save while they're still young.
Now, ability with money is often a bequest transferred by people who understand money to their children. Children of the poor and children who haven't grown up around money often have to be aided to understand money. And how do you think this is best done in a fun and creative way?
So we need to start with, it's not about how much you save. So one of the activities that we sometimes do is to say to the kids, if you had to pick up 5 cents every day, do you know how much you'd have saved at the end of the year? And saving is really about the regular. So save some kind of amount of money, but regularly. So regularly is the magic word.
Yes, the consistency.
Consistency is not how much. So half the time, especially when it comes to exactly that we always think that children from the poor family can't practice the saving behavior just because they're poor. But some of the things that we don't look at is save water, save electricity. It's a savings behavior that we're looking at. If you save water and you save electricity, indirectly you're saving, because at the end of the month you're paying less on your electricity bill or on your water bill.
So now, how do we build a culture of prudence and conservation in an era of consumption and conspicuous consumption?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing that we always make children to remember is the difference between needs and wants. So you spend less on your wants and you spend more on your needs, which is even something that we keep teaching the adults as well. So to teach the children to say, look at where you spending your money. And in our program, in actual fact, we even teach the children about budgeting, because budgeting is literally tracking your money. So you need to know that from my income, which could have been the 20 cents or whatever the money that you get from your parents, to say from that, from your income you will then have expenses, right? But then from that expenses you then need to know how much was your want and how much was your need, and then obviously your other expenses is the unexpected the expenses. However, the only reason why we say that is that that's the only way you can decrease on your wants and therefore be able to save. So needs and wants are the biggest thing. Do I really need this thing, or do I want it? If you want it, don't spend on it so you can save. So needs and wants for us in the classrooms or whenever we're teaching the children, that's the biggest thing. They just need to understand the difference between the needs and wants.
That requires a degree of self-knowledge, and Madiba did teach us that self-mastery is the root of all dignity, and that saving can enhance a child's sense of self-mastery and therefore her sense of place in the world and her ability to control her destiny, her future and her outcomes. Now, when the child next door has that BMX, how do you teach this?
Yeah. So the other thing that we try and encourage from children is exactly that. What do I need? So the child from next door might need that BMX, but do you need it or is it a want? The other thing, obviously, that we need to keep encouraging the kids is not to want something out of pressure, out of peer pressure, and that's another thing that even parents, even adults, we do things out of peer pressure. So the children need to understand what right when they're still young. What is my goal? What do I want? Do I really want that BMX? And if I want it, then that should be in my savings plan. So I then will say, I want the BMX as well, so I'm going to save for it, and at the end of the year, I will then say to my parents, I have saved this much, now can you help me to buy the BMX? So that we don't also build the culture of, I just want and then give it to me. And that is the other problem that we have if we don't teach people to save, because we just give we give the children, and as they grow, they already learned that if I just ask, I then get it. So there's nothing wrong if the child say, I'm going to put down a savings plan because I want the BMX, but then encourage the child to say, no problem, so start saving, and once you have this amount of money, I will then help you buy the BMX.
So we have to teach the value of saving in a bed and embed it in a matrix of other values that we need to teach our children in order to empower them to resist the culture of instant gratification. So can you tell us what other values go with the value of saving?
The biggest thing, the other thing is don't pay for what you don't need. So if we had to put it in, say for example, transactional accounts, half of us have transactional accounts that or any account for that matter, that you pay a service fee, but you don't actually use those benefits. So let me make an example. There are some transactional accounts that within the service fee that you pay, you might be able to use a lounge at the airport and you don't have to pay. But if you don't travel and you hardly ever use an airport, why are you using that account? So when you open an account, do your homework. Find out what is my lifestyle, what do I need, and pay only for what you need. For some of us, you would have had a big house, for example, and the kids have grown up and they've moved out. If you don't need a big house, why are you still paying for it? And the list goes on. If you have a big car, and you might have bought that big car when the kids were still young because you were traveling with them. Now you can carpool, or you can use a bus, or you can use a train, meaning you don't have to pay for that big car anymore. So only pay for what you need.
Talk to me about the value of routine and rearing children to save. After dinner, we put 5 cents in the piggy bank, and then only then can we watch television. So if you link it to a reward, how does that pan out? And are you able to create the kind of consistency that you talked about earlier in our discussion?
And you can. The answer is you can, but like you say, it has to be consistent. And you as a parent, you also have to lead as an example. One of the things that we do is that we show kids that you earn money and you consume. You earn money and you consume. So then then that disturbs that consistency, because then the child gets anxious to say, okay, so when are we going to spend it? When are you going to spend it? So do follow through to say, yes, there's going to be a culture to say, I will put 2 rands, you just need to put your 5 cents if it's a 5 cent, but it has to be regular. But then don't also forget to say...
I'm trying to get to the benefit of daily routines that we can instill in families and among kids that teach kids that life proceeds in a regular pattern if you plan for it, and therefore this is the way that we here build consistency by having dinner at a certain time, putting money in the piggy bank, praying or watching TV or whatever the family tradition is. How about linking it to family practices and traditions?
So we can even add things like, then maybe every weekend or every Saturday we're going to sit and take out the money from the shoebox or whatever and count how far we go, you know. But then Monday we go, and then we're going to continue, and every Saturday we're going to count on how far it goes. And then maybe every month end we take the money and we go put it in the account at the bank.
What about linking money to hard work? In other words, you polish grandpa's shoes, you get 2 rand.
Yeah, my daughter is very good in that.
Is your daughter good at that?
Yes.
Wonderful.
So yes, and kids can are actually motivated when you do that. So for her, she will say, you know, you get home and you're so tired, and she's good in massage, and she will say, okay, I'll do it, but I want my 10 rand, you know. One of the things, or it could be that if it's a boy, if I help you, I can help you wash the car, so you don't have to take it to the car wash, which as an adult, by the way, you're saving your petrol and you're saving more money, but then they're also learning that you're going to earn money the right way. Money doesn't just grow from the tree.
Money needs to be earned the right way.
That's it.
On that note, we have to end our discussion. It was fascinating. As a mom, I find these kind of topics enormously interesting and beneficial.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for joining us tonight, dear viewer. Good night.